Welcome, everyone. Sports and shorts of sorts. Yours truly, Rennie Rant City Rickey. Let's hop right to the jerseys, yo. When you think of number 29 in sports, NFL legendary running back Eric Dickerson has to be near the top. Like, I don't know. I've been doing a lot of jersey editions of late, and running backs have always been in there, but Dickerson's got to be near the top, winning Rookie of the Year in '83, five-time All Pro, six Pro Bowls, leading the league in rushing four times, and he has one of the most elusive NFL records as well. Single season rushing yards total 2,100 yards, 2,105 yards. So, with more teams devaluing the running back position, that could be harder to attain, but they do have an extra game, so maybe that'll work. I don't know. We'll see. But he also holds the record for most rushing yards in a rookie season, 1,808 yards, and most rushing yards in a playoff game, 248. His 29 is retired with the Rams, and he's also in the Indianapolis Colts Ring of Honor. He wore number 19 in college at SMU, teaming up with Greg James to force the Pony Express. Really good 30 for 30 episode about it. Lots of controversy, though, as it's rumored Eric Dickerson accepted money to go to SMU. It was seen he was driving around a brand new Trans Am senior year of high school, so yeah, we'll see. NIL's around now, different times, but sticking with the gridiron, have to go to the defensive side. Kansas City Chiefs legend Eric Berry played safety at a high level, earning three first team All Pros, five Pro Bowls, and part of the All Decade team for the 2010s. He also won NFL Comeback Player of the Year in 2015. He was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma to December 8th, 2014. Went through chemotherapy, all off season, and was declared cancer free. He returned to the Jets and made the Pro Bowl. So pretty amazing for him. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame for his time at Tennessee, where he piled up accolades. And jumping from the gridiron to the diamond, first baseball player I have to mention has a hell of a resume. And he's in the Hanukkah song by Adam Sandler. I'm talking Rod Carew, born in Panama, one of the best hitters ever. Made 18 All Star games, winning seven AL batting titles along the way. Won Rookie of the Year in '67, AL MVP in '77. Remember the elusive 3,000 hit club? Suited up for the Twins and Angels, has his number 29 retired with both of them, and he's in the Hall of Fame, obviously. Sticking with baseball players, have to stick with one of the better pitchers in the MLB. Talking about Atlanta Braves legend John Smoltz. He kills it on TV now, but man, he was a stud back in the day. Eight All Star appearances, won the NL Cy Young in '96. He was part of that Braves team that won in '95. Many think they should have won more, but c'est la vie. Led the NL in wins twice, strikeouts once, and then he even led the league in saves in 2002. Very adaptable. He was a starter that would work his way into the bullpen, stick around, and bullpen lighten it up as a reliever. So great pitcher, very adaptable, fantastic on TV. He's in the Braves Hall of Fame. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Fantastic pitcher. Another baseball player, Adrian Beltre, made four All Star appearances, winning five Gold Gloves, four Silver Slugger. Also an elusive member of the 3,000 Hit Club, being the first Dominican Republic born player to do so. And his 29 is retired by the Rangers, and he is in the Hall of Fame. And in the Rangers Hall of Fame, sorry. But he's going to go to Cooperstown, I think. I believe he'll go in. But the NBA, I couldn't think of anyone really with 29 immediately. I found Paul Silas wore it for a long extended period of time. But other than that, not a lot. And Silas won three titles, two with the Celtics and one with the Supersonics. Two All Star games in his career, five All Defensive teams, way before my time. But I remember Paul Silas as a coach. Excuse me. I was a big Baron Davis fan. I used to have his poster up on the wall. I love those Hornets teams, and he coached them. He was LeBron's first coach in the NBA with the Cavs when he came in the league, and great dude. His son coaches in the league now, so yeah, I always like Paul Silas. Finishing on the ice, probably most well-known number 29, Ken Dryden. He's a huge name. He won the Conn Smythe in '71, and one of the most amazing runs with the Canadians. And what was unique about that was Dryden was called up in the minors late in the season and just started putting up amazing numbers. They kept him in. He proceeded to win the Conn Smythe. They won the cup. So he didn't technically register as a rookie. So the following season, tried won Rookie of the Year, the Calder Trophy. So, wow, just came in ready to go, winning 6 Stanley Cups, 5 Vezines. His 29 is retired by the Montreal Canadiens. He's thrived off the ice, writing successful books and even jumping into politics, joining the Liberal Party in Canada for a bit. So, yeah, another goalie to wear number 29, Felix the Cat Potvin, Toronto Maple Leafs. I remember him from my childhood. Didn't put up nearly the amount of stats of Dryden, but he's a solid player. Current player to wear 29, you got to look at Nathan McKinnon with the Avalanche, former number one pick draft. Stellar resume, and he's only 28. He's won Rookie of the Year, 6 All-Star games. Lady Bing, he lifted the Stanley Cup in 2022 with the Avalanche. I always like him for his appearance in Trailer Park Boys at Ricky's ball hockey camp. So I always like him for that shit. And my final mention of the jerseys, I'll stick with hockey. Number 29 for the Edmonton Oilers, Leon Draisaitl, 27-year-old from Germany, is already a pretty sick career. 3 All-Star games. In 2020, won the Art Ross, Ted Lindsay, and the Hart Trophy. So pretty dynamic. And yeah, this 29, a unique number that didn't come to me right away. The Rod Carew numbers, I knew he was good, but diving into it, that's why I love the jersey segments, just the history of sports. There should be a class somewhere where you can take that. But excuse me, let's jump into the wild week of sports we had. Immediately after last podcast, we had the double Monday Night Football thing, and it was a nasty one, like our Monday nights have been, with Nick Chubb taking a horrible injury. They didn't even show the replay. It was so bad. And it's the same knee where he tore his MCL, ACL, and PCL in college. So he's done for the year. He was carted off, but oy, oy, oy. And yeah, that's really took a lot out of the game. There still was a game to be played. The Steelers would hold on to win 26-22, but yeah, that Chubb loss was huge. And then the other game was between the Saints and the Panthers. Nothing really too crazy. The Saints kind of had it all game. Bryce Young hit Thielen late to make it score respectable. But yeah, the only biggest news in that was Jamal Williams getting hurt and having Tony Jones step up. And Bryce Young would get hurt, which would keep him out of week 3, which I'll roll right into, which started with Thursday. The Giants going into the 49ers, they were missing Saquon Barkley, who suffered an ordinary ankle sprain, which is better than an unordinary one, I guess. But they're saying it's not significant, but significant enough to keep him out of this game. And yeah, I went and watched the game with a Giants fan. Shout out to Kyle, but it was not very good for the Giants. Like, I have Daniel Jones and Darren Waller on a fantasy team of mine, and they got 5.35 for Jones and 5 for Waller. So that could tell you how well the Giants did. The kicker, Jake Moody, had a hell of a game for the 49ers. He was lighting it up. But overall, not your finest game, unless you're a 49ers fan. They took it 30-12, remaining undefeated and sending the Giants down to 1-2, who, other than one half against Arizona, have not looked very good this season. So without Barkley, I don't see it getting much better. But as a Daniel Jones fantasy football owner who's on the verge of throwing him away, hopefully they do some better. But Sunday came, and it was a wild one. Start with the craziest scoreline of the weekend. The Dolphins beating the Broncos 70-20. First time I've ever seen a 70 burger. The first time a 70's been dropped in the NFL since 1966. Washington beat the Giants 72-41 back then. And wow, outrageous to witness. It just didn't even make sense, Like, they went in halftime at 35 points, which is pretty outrageous, but you've seen that before, right? But the 70 in the box score, god damn. Rookie Devin Achane, he went bananas, running for 203 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a waiver wire pickup. I imagine no one had him starting yesterday. Raheem Mostert ran for 3 touchdowns and caught one. Tua Tagovailoa threw for 4 touchdowns and 309 yards. Only 3 incompletions on the whole game. Like, at the beginning of the season, I picked Buffalo and the 49ers in the Super Bowl, but man, Miami, if they stay healthy, who's going to stop them? Nothing. It's one of those old things. The only thing that can stop you is yourself. I feel that's how it is with Miami. Like, their defense has been suspect at times, but with that offense, who cares? Just outscore them every time. But Wow, next week will be a big one for them because they'll be taking on the Bills, my pick to go, right? And we'll stick with the Bills because they took on the Commanders, who were coming in undefeated, and they did not look like an undefeated team. The Bills would pick off Sam Howell 4 times, going holding on to win 37-3. Not a very good game, so kind of probably humbling the Washington team a bit. And sticking with one-sided games, the Cleveland Browns hosted the Tennessee Titans and beat down on them 27-3. Probably the best game we've seen of Deshaun Watson in a Browns jersey, as shitty as that is to say. And running back filled by committee, filled in for Nick Chubb, who I talked about earlier. Jerome Ford, he rushed one in and caught one, so he was a hot waiver wire pickup as well. The Green Bay Packers had their home opener against the New Orleans Saints. First time the Packers opened up at home without a quarterback named Favre or Rodgers since 1992. And it wasn't looking very good for Jordan Love. Saints were leading 17-0 going into the fourth quarter despite losing Derek Carr to injury, who was slammed on his shoulder and taken out of the game. He's getting it x-rayed. We'll hear about the extent of that, I imagine, through the week. But I don't know if he'll be starting next week. But Anders Carlson would get a field goal that would kind of spark the Packers, I guess. Jordan Love would follow that up with a 1-yard touchdown run, 2-point conversion. Then they get a pass from Love to Romeo Dubs. I always don't know if it's Dubs or Dubes. I'm sure it's Dubs. But giving the Packers an 18-17 lead. Some nice late game love by Jordan Love. But there's still time on the clock. And Jameis Winston, who came in and was doing okay for Carr, he led the Saints in the field goal range and gave rookie kicker Blake Grupe a chance to give the Saints a lead back. And Groupie lined it up from 46 yards out, and he missed it right. His first NFL miss. I was cheering. This household was, yeah. It was a win, regardless. You'll take it how it is. First time a Packer team has come back 17 down in the fourth quarter. Like, only the second time in 100 years. So, it's not done very often, even with the lore of Favre and Rodgers. Jordan Love is doing his own thing, which is awesome. I'm pumped for him. I love it. Jumping to another NFC North, NFC South matchup, the Lions hosted the undefeated Falcons, and this was all owned by the Lions. The Falcons didn't have any kind of offense attack, and they couldn't get the running game going like they had the last two games. So this was an easy Lions 20-6 win. Big surprise on the weekend was the Texans going into Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. C.J. Stroud probably had his best game as a pro, going 280 yards, 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. That's the key thing. This combined with some pretty wacky plays, like after McManus got a field goal for the Jaguars on the ensuing kickoff, the Jags popped up a shallow boot. It was bobbled and picked up by big fullback Andrew Beck, who, I don't know, channeled his inner Devin Hester and took off to the sideline and was running, bustling through tackles, rumbling and bumbling. 85-yard unconventional kickoff return. Very unlikely play you may never see again. Yeah, the Texans went in and won 37-17. Great win for the young quarterback. And sticking with the surprise train, let's roll into Baltimore, where the Ravens were hosting a team that used to reside in Baltimore, the Colts. And this one was interesting off the gate because Anthony Richardson was missing the game with injury. In comes Gardner Minshew. He'd step up. He played pretty well, you know. He got his team in the positions he needed to. Zach Moss ran great. And Minshew's numbers won't jump out at you, but he did what he had to do to get Matt Gay's amazing foot in position, first to tie the game and force OT, then in position to hit the 53-yard game winner. You know, former MVP Lamar Jackson played pretty well, throwing 200 yards, running for 102 touchdowns, but Colts defense just made big plays when they had to, much like the offense, giving the Colts a 22-19 overtime win. Both those teams sit at 2-1. Ravens you might have expected, but Colts, man, they're playing great. I really like that team this year. The Chargers traveled to Minnesota to take on the Vikings, and this game featured lots of boneheaded plays by teams that are notorious for boneheaded plays. And Mike Williams put up the touchdown in the third quarter to give the visitors a 21-10 lead before he had to leave the game with injury. Hope it's not too serious for him. And then Kirk Cousins would hit KJ Osborne, and then in the fourth, Justin Jefferson to give the Vikings a 24-21 lead. Herbert would go down, hit Palmer for 30 yards, put the Chargers back ahead. And then the Vikings couldn't get their first down, had the punt. And the Chargers, all they had to do was run the clock out, right? But they're stopped. It's 4th and short. Here they go. Going to kick the ball. Wait. Staley, I'm going to be gutsy again, goes for it in his own end on 4th and down. Does not get it. So, wow. And the Vikings are like, shit, we're in great position. All we need is a touchdown, but they couldn't do it. Staley is lucky in this one, in the Someone's Gotta Win Bowl. The Chargers win 28-24, and they're 1-2, while the Vikings winless at 0-3. I did not see that coming, but wow. Wow. The Jets hosted the Patriots in a divisional bout, and it was not a great display of football. The Jets offense was setting the game back 100 years. Zach Wilson continued to struggle in a starting role. You could see frustrations bubbling on the sideline. But somehow the Jets got a late Nick Bawden touchdown, big run by the fullback, 1 yard scamper to make it a one possession game. And then the Jets would have a chance to win it, only for Wilson to get sacked in the end zone. Safety, 15-10 win for the Patriots. And the afternoon games, they were hard to live up to the morning games. The Chiefs took a note out of the Dolphins playbook and beat down on the Bears. They were up 34-0 at halftime. They were up so nicely. Patrick Mahomes was pulled for Blaine Gabbert, who came in and proceeded to throw 2 interceptions. But man, what a beatdown. Bears dropped to 0-3. Big shellacking by the Chiefs. And it's cringy watching a lot of this game because they just... Travis Kelce is now dating Taylor Swift, so anytime anything happened, they'd say, "Hey, what's Taylor Swift doing?" So yeah, it was unless you're a big Swiftie, I guess, and but still, like all game, ugh. So we'll see. Hopefully, there's not many more other players dating celebrities who are watching them play, and we have to keep panning to them all game. But whatever, they were feeling 22, they say. But the Seattle Seahawks, they hosted the Panthers. And as I had mentioned earlier, Bryce Young picked up an injury in that Monday night game last week. So, incoming Red Rifle Andy Dalton, he filled in. He did pretty well. But I think the big difference in this game was that fucking Seattle crowd, that 12th man. They were causing so many pre-snap penalties and gave the Seahawks the victory in that one. One of the biggest surprise, not one of the biggest surprise of the afternoon games, were the Cowboys going in the desert to take on the Cardinals. And Cowboys were heavy favorites, and the Cardinals made those odd makers look silly because they went ahead early, as they seem to do this year, going to halftime 21-10. Except this time they actually held on to the lead. Dak threw bad red zone interception. Cowboys lose this one 28-16. First loss of the season for the Cowboys, while Jonathan Gannon gets his first NFL victory with the Cardinals, so kudos to him. The nightcap had two fantastic fan bases, but this wasn't the most entertaining one. You know, the Steelers and the Raiders met up. Raiders jumped ahead on a Devontae Adams touchdown. Pittsburgh would answer on a 72-yard touchdown by Kelvin Austin III. Excuse me. Pittsburgh would control most of the game with Chris Boswell field goals. But through the brilliant play of Devontae Adams, this became a one-possession game late. And that was about all they could get to, as the Steelers would hold on to win 23-18, moving the Pittsburgh Steelers up to 2-1, while the Raiders dropped to 1-2. They look still a very discombobulated team. They seem to just be like, get it to Devontae and hope for the best. So they might need to advance their scheme a little more. But much like last week, 2 Monday night games this week. This won't be going forward. This is the last week in a while they'll be doing this. But I made 2 choices last week, Saints and Steelers, easy choices. This week's we got the Eagles going into Tampa Bay taking on the Buccaneers, and the LA Rams taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Bucs have surprised people this season. They look pretty good with Baker Mayfield, but I think the Eagles will remain the undefeated team here. The Bengals are really needing a win and don't want to drop to 0-2, but the Rams have looked much better than expected. Puka Nacua filling in admirably for Cooper Kupp. And I have the Rams beating the Bengals this week, much like tonight, much like Super Bowl 56. And look out for Thursday night game because my Packers are hosting the Lions. Should be a dandy, and of course the Packers winning that. Some other Week 4 matchups that kind of stick out: Rams and Colts. Those teams are surprising and fighting hard. Excuse me. Ravens and Browns, good division battle, and of course Dolphins and Bills. That's the one to watch. One maybe to miss: Broncos and Bears. Womp womp. Bad games for both those franchises, but hey, one of them have to win, or maybe a little tie. But hopefully, one of them get a win. Both of them need it really bad. If we went from football to baseball, probably the biggest news: Shohei Ohtani undergoing surgery on his elbow. They're saying he won't be allowed to pitch till 2025. Doctors are saying he'll be ready to bat in 2024, but that's it. He is entering free agency. So the big talk was this mega contract Ohtani was going to get, but that was prior to this second surgery he's had in his career. So we'll see. People are going to pay this guy, but maybe it won't be as high as they are expecting because a whole year without pitching, I don't know, but they're saying when he comes back, he'll be good to go. So I don't know. It's a tough one. We'll see where he goes. I just know he won't be an LA Angel. Toronto Blue Jays, man, they had a big one this week, right? They went into New York, take on the Yankees in a 3-game series. Started series off right, 6-1 win in the first game. Kikuchi had to leave the game with upper trap muscle cramps. Caused a little concern. He said it was because he didn't get his usual 13 to 14 hours sleep, which the media went crazy about, only to find out Kikuchi has a very dry sense of humor and caught us all for suckers. Excuse me. Sorry, I need a little sippy there. But yeah, the second game of the series was a pitcher's duel for a while. Gosman would get 10 strikeouts. Michael King would have a career-high 13. But the Jays' bats would wake up once King left the game, and they would take this game 6-1 as well, setting up the third and final game, going up against Garrett Cole on the mound, which is always a tough one. Jays sent out Jose Barrios, but the Yankees got to him early. Jays tried to come back, but lost 5-3, but still taking 2 of 3. You know, they need those wins. They'd migrate from the Bronx down to Tampa Bay to take on the Rays. Again, another important AL East matchup, and it'd be interesting to see how the Jays will respond here, because so far with adversity hasn't been too good. Game 1 would be a good matchup between Tyler Glasnow and Chris Bassett. The Rays would go ahead in the first, but the Jays would come back and then some, taking the 6-2 victory. Bigger news for the Rays was Randy Arozarena having to leave the game with tightness in his right quad. Hopefully it's nothing serious. He's a great player. Second game, the Rays would get to the Jays in the first inning again, this time a Yandy Diaz solo bomb. Jays were down 5-0 at one point in the game. They stormed back, grabbed a 6-5 lead going in the bottom of the ninth, and they have the game tied up when Curtis Mead would get an RBI, and then Josh Lowe would come up and hit a walk-off RBI single to give the Rays a 7-6 win. The rubber match would go down Sunday. Kikuchi would be back, probably got enough sleep. He was playing, and again, the Rays would score in the first inning. Recently called up Junior Caminero would get his first MLB RBI on a single, which gave the Rays an early 2-0 lead. And then the Jays' bats would wake up. They'd get 2 home runs via Vladdy Jr., Bo Bichette would hit a solo one. And probably the most exciting play of the game was George Springer belting one off center field wall and cueing the Benny Hill music as it was an inside-the-park 3-run home run. Always cool to see inside-the-park home runs. And Jays take this one, 9-5. Much-needed win for the Jays. Winning 5 out of 6 this week in an important series. Well done, boys. And hopefully they're familiar with these teams as we go into the last week of the baseball season. The Jays will be playing again. They'll have Monday off before they host the Yankees in a 3-game series. Then they end their season against the Tampa Bay Rays. So, excuse me, very big games this week. And a lot of playoff implications on the line. Like I'll say, the American lease is still technically up for grabs. The Orioles won 4 out of 6 this week with wins over the Astros and Guardians. They end their season against the Nationals and Red Sox, and they have a 2.5-game lead over the Rays, who play the Red Sox in Toronto. So the Rays could still take the division, but I think it's going to go to the Orioles. But like this week will determine that. The AL Central has already been clinched. Minnesota Twins have had that done. Only 500 team. Disgusting. AL West has changed hands many times. The game of hot potato. The Rangers are holding the spot. They have a big week, taking 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox before sweeping the Mariners in 3. Those Mariners are now 3 games behind the Rangers, and they have 2 massive series left in the series as they take on Houston and Texas. And those Astros, who I just mentioned, are only 2.5 games behind the Rangers. This is big because the Astros, they were right in there, but what a time to get swept by the Kansas City Royals. And now that's why they're looking at the division-leading Rangers. The Astros end their season against the Mariners, like I said, and the Diamondbacks. So they're in a good spot, but that AL West is wickety wild right now. But wow. The AL wild card, with all that said, Tampa Bay has that top spot. That could switch with Baltimore depending on who wins the division. Toronto's got that second spot right now, sitting pretty, but remember, don't let up. You still got to finish this season. They're 2 games ahead of the Astros, who have that third spot. And the only team that can catch the Astros is the Mariners, who are half a game back. I mean, the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers could still play musical chairs, and one of them are going to get out, or it could be the Jays getting knocked out. So, wow, really intense last week in baseball. This is what the league wants for this insanely long season to have this much intensity in the last week of the game. Wow, excuse me, sound like a demon there. Wow. National League, all divisions are wrapped up. Atlanta Braves had a NL East clinched a while ago. The Brewers have the NL Central clinched. Dodgers have the NL West clinched. So yada yada. To the wild card. The Phillies have the top wild card spot. They're sitting 5 ahead of the Diamondbacks, so they should be clinching that soon. The Diamondbacks are only a half game ahead of the Chicago Cubs, who are in that last spot, who only have a 1 game lead over the Marlins. And then the Reds are only 2.5 back. Giants and Padres at 5 back. I don't know if they have enough to get into the wild card, but those last 2 spots are still open games, so lots to play for in the NL as well. Jump into the pitch. Champions League return, one of the greatest tournaments in the world. The Champions. They have the best theme song too. I can't sing it like that, but love it. Tuesday we had some doozies. Last year's winner, Man City, found themselves in strange territory, going down 1-0 against Red Star Belgrade, but they woke up in the second half, winning 3-1. They set like a record in the first half for most shots without a goal, so you figured the levee would break eventually, and it did. Barcelona disposed of Antwerp 5-0. PSG always looked more dangerous side. Their 2-0 win over Borussia Dortmund. Feyenoord skunked Celtic 2-0. Porto took down Shakhtar 3-1. Leipzig did the same to Swiss team Young Boys. Newcastle returned to European competition, were able to secure a draw in Italy against AC Milan. Biggest game of the day was probably Lazio and Atletico Madrid. Atletico had gone up in the 29th minute, and they looked poised to hold on the victory. Stoppage time corner, Lazio keeper, even Ivan Provedel came up to try, equalize. Initial corner didn't lead to anything, but the ensuing cross, Provedel came in and attacked it like a long-time striker, burying the goal in the 95-minute, securing the point for Lazio. What a wild game. The keeper comes up a lot, but you never really see them score that often, so when it does, damn. One of those, come on, man, moments. But yeah, Wednesday there were some dandies as well. Real Madrid would need a stoppage time goal by Jude Bellingham to beat Union Berlin 1-0. Copenhagen would jump out to a 2-0 lead over Galatasaray, but 58th minute, straight red card to the Danish side. Seemed to spark the team from Turkey, and Galatasaray would get 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game, 2 minutes apart, ending in a draw. What an ending. The biggest match of the week was German champs Bayern Munich taking on legendary club Manchester United, a matchup up of that legendary final many years ago. But Bayern looked the better club today. They went up 2-0. Højlund would get one back for United to make it 2-1. Then a penalty by Harry Kane made it 3-1. Casemiro in the 88th made it 3-2. You're like, wow, is Man U coming back? Only for Mathis Tell to score for Bayern, making it 4-2. And just before the whistle in 95th minute, Casemiro would score his second of the game, making it 4-3. Fury of goals. Just a wild game. United keeper Onana, he put this on himself, saying, this one's on me, guys. And there were some shots maybe he could have played better, but good on him for owning up to it. Bad on him for letting those goals in. Oh, wow. Other games, Arsenal returned to the Champions League, first time since 2016. Came in with a bang, crushing PSV 4-0. Sevilla and Lens would end in 1-1, as well as Real Sociedad and Inter Milan. Italian champs, Napoli would need an 88th minute to beat Portugal side Braga 2-1. And RB Salzburg surprised Benfica 2-0. So, yeah, Champions League's back and thriving. The group games are wild. I love it. As the Champions League began, so did its little cousin, the Europa League. There were some good matches in this competition. I have to shout out West Ham beating TSC 3-1. Liverpool going down early to Lask, but coming back to win 3-1. Ajax and Marseille had a really entertaining bout, ending in a 3-3 draw. And a last-minute red card for the Dutch side. 2 results that surprised me a bit. Premier League side Brighton, making their European competition debut, lost at home against AEK Athens 3-2. And the other big surprise with Panathinaikos beating Spanish side Villarreal 2-0. So I guess with Europa League, Greece is the word, with those 2 Greek clubs coming in and doing their thing. The even smaller cousin of the Champions League, Conference League. I mentioned it, West Ham won it last year to win their first European trophy in years. And there was a Premier League side involved this week too. Aston Villa would go into Poland, lose against Legia Warsaw 3-2. What an atmosphere. If you want to see some insane fan experiences, look up some Polish footy fans. It gets pretty crazy. That was midweek, but on the weekend, Premier League came back. You know, some teams were a little thinner from having their European bouts during the midweek. Man City came off their convincing win against Red Star, take on Forest, and they won that one easily 2-0. They had a red card direct to Rodri in the second half, but they never really seemed troubled. Fulham and Palace would end in a scoreless draw. Luton Town and Wolves had some excitement. Straight red card to Wolves before halftime, put them a man down, only for them to go ahead 1-0 the 50th minute, and then a penalty for Luton would lead them to tie it up in the 65th, and that's how that would end. Man U would take on Burnley, get a goal by Bruno Fernandes just before halftime. That was the only goal in the game. Everton picked up their first win of the season, going into Brentford and beating the London club 3-1. Sunday matches had some big ones, you know. I've been feeling pretty good about West Ham this season. We're taking on Liverpool, but man, they served us some humble pie. They'd go ahead with a penalty in the 16th minute, an easy penalty. When Jared Bowen tied it up just before half, I started to feel pretty good. But then two second half goals by Darwin Nunez and Diogo Jota led to the 3-1 Liverpool win. We'll get them next time, I guess. Ugh. Biggest match of the weekend was probably Tottenham and Arsenal in the North London derby, and it was another doozy. We had goals, quick answers, you know. Romero would get an own goal and putting Arsenal ahead, but Son would equalize just before halftime. And the second half, Saka would score in a penalty. And then not even a minute later, Son would equalize again for Tottenham. And that's how it would end, 2-2. Both teams have come out looking great to start the season. Going to a London club who has not looked great to start the season, Chelsea hosted Aston Villa, and it did not go well again for the West London side. They Marlo Gusto was given a yellow card in the second half, but VAR upgraded it to a straight red. Chelsea went a man down. And then the 73rd, they went a goal down when Ollie Watkins put Villa ahead, and they'd win 1-0. Worst start to a top-flight season for Chelsea since 78-79. Yikes. Brighton was looking to bounce back from their midweek struggles, and they hosted Bournemouth, and they went down 1-0. Not ideal for them, but they came back to win 3-1. So that's the Brighton we're used to seeing. I think they were just thrown off a bit midweek by that Polish crowd. It's still pretty wild. Look it up if you haven't. Crazy. But last match of the weekend, the Prem, was Sheffield United hosting Newcastle, and it got ugly. The goals after goals after goals, winning by a touchdown. It was pretty wild. But Newcastle, they're looking good, and I have to shout out Amazon Prime show. We Are Newcastle United. Brilliant show. It's only a few episodes, but I recommend it. It taught me a bit more about the takeover with the new owners, and yeah, it was a really good watch, which makes me bring up Welcome to Wrexham. I said it's on Disney Plus in America. Not right now for us. It's got season 1 still, but season 2 not yet. So I apologize for making that mistake. It's not available in Canada yet. Thanks, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney. Thanks for that. But while I'm on about Wrexham, maybe karma for making me look bad. They looked bad this weekend. They went on the road to Stockport, who you may remember from season 1 of the show, and they lost 5-0. Not good. It looked ugly. They sit 7th in the League 2 table. Notts County still at the top of that table. In Spain, biggest match of the weekend, the Madrid derby between Atletico and Real Madrid. Atletico jumped out to a quick lead when Alvaro Morata would score 4 minutes in. Griezmann would get their second. Toni Kroos would try to bring Real Madrid back in the 35th, but an early second half goal by Morata would put it out of reach, I guess, as they won 3-1. And Barcelona scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes to come back to beat Celta Vigo. Girona's kept their hot start going, beating Mallorca 5-3. And after 6 match days, Barcelona, and you heard right, Girona, are tied atop of the table. My Girona. Real Madrid just behind them after the before-mentioned first loss of their domestic season. And going to Italy, Inter Milan kept their perfect record going, winning 5 of 5 for the season, beating Empoli. Empoli still has not scored this season in 5. Not very good. Inter's rivals AC kept their pace with a 1-0 win over Verona. Last year's champs, Napoli, were held to a draw against Bologna. Torino and Roma drew with a goal apiece. Biggest shock of the Serie A was Juventus losing to Sassuolo 4-2. Juventus equalized with just over 10 minutes ago. It was 2-2, but two late goals by Sassuolo would give them the victory. Inter Milan, like I said, perfect records to the top of the table with AC right behind them. The French league, there were some pretty big matchups that would end in defeat for some of them. Nice picked up a stoppage time goal by Jeremy Boga to win in Monaco. Nantes picked up a much needed win in a 5-3 thriller over Lorient. And in the highly touted matchup between PSG and Marseille in the French capital, PSG crushed them 4-0. Lille and Reims still have to play on Tuesday to wrap up their match week. But surprisingly, Brest sits atop of the French league, so that's awesome. Good for Brest. Nice are right behind them with PSG and Monaco right behind them. I don't mention a lot of the Dutch league. I have to mention one incident. I was watching this in the morning, the Feyenoord Ajax game. After Feyenoord went up 2-0, there was some shit thrown on the field. The ref said, enough of this jibber jabber, get that guy out. If this happens again, we're calling it. Only after the third goal by Feyenoord, the Ajax fans in Amsterdam proceeded to throw flares and shit on the field. They said, that's it, suspending the game. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. Kind of brutal if you were there enjoying the game and you're like, fuck me. Or if you're the team and you're like, well, can we come back and try to win? Well, no, game over. That's why we can't have nice things. Got to mention this college football story again with Mel Tucker at Michigan State University. This whole thing's just getting way more out of control. And it was MSU president, athletic director, had provided Mel Tucker with the intent to terminate his contract for cause. This is all after the investigation into the sexual harassment stuff of him masturbating on the phone, talking to this woman, and she was not cool with it. He's saying she was cool with it. Disregardless, as a coach, you probably shouldn't be involved there, but yeah, that's brutal. He's probably going to get canned for this. And I mean, he probably should for putting himself in that spot, as a leader of men at the college level. He probably shouldn't do that. But going to the football field, the big talk, everyone, right? Deion Sanders, love it or hate it, he's been the talk, and he was going in the Oregon take on the Ducks, and the Ducks, number 10 team in the country, like they're no slouches, and they had the 21-point favorite. People are like, is that a little generous? No, it was not generous. Oregon would go on to win 42-6. Veteran Bo Nix had all kinds of time. Shedeur Sanders had no time. It was really one-sided. And after the game, they'd highlight Dan Lanning, coach of the Ducks, for his pregame speech, saying they're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. So yeah, it's very divided world. There seems to be people that love Deion and people that hate Deion, and everyone's like, oh, well, maybe this will give them some humility. And Deion responded to that saying, we aren't arrogant, we're confident people. Our confidence offends people's insecurity. And he said he's keeping receipts on Lanning's comments. But you know what, love him or hate him, this team was 1-11 last year. They already passed their win total. They're doing great things there, and we don't know what his goals are. Like Clinton Yates had brought up on Around the Horn, what are Deion's goals? Is he trying to build this team into a national championship contender? Is he trying to get the guys to the NFL? What are his goals? But all we know is he's getting these guys to play good football. They might not have showed up for Oregon, but yeah, tough loss for them, and you're going to hear all week people shitting on him, but we'll see how he bounces back. They usually feed off this kind of feedback, and he's brought up teams aren't playing me. They seem to be playing me. They're playing the college kids, but they seem to be, but whatever. We'll see what happens with that going forward. There are other big matches, obviously, in the scene. The one that I highlighted last episode, Ohio State, Notre Dame, they were in the Notre Dame Stadium, right? It was into a high-scoring game. Buckeyes were up 10-0, looking pretty good. And then after two touchdowns of their own, Notre Dame were up 14-10 with a little over 8 minutes to go in the fourth. But Ohio State would set themselves up to snatch up victory. A 1-yard touchdown run with 1 second left in the game would basically give them the win. The biggest talking point from that last play of the game was as Notre Dame were lining up to stop the 1-yard touchdown, they only had 10 guys on the field. They had a guy short, so yikes. They're saying an article in The Athletic even said Coach Marcus Freeman wasn't even aware of the debacle. So not a good look for Notre Dame to lose on the last play of the game with not even enough players on the field. Yikes. Other games that jumped out were LSU holding on a 3-point win at Arkansas, Utah winning a low-scoring game against UCLA, and Washington State getting the 38-35 upset with a win over the only other Pac-12 team going forward, Oregon State. The last college game I'll mention, Florida State's ridiculous comeback over Clemson. The ACC rivals entertained the masses. Looked like Clemson was going to get the upset win. Then with 31 seconds left, Kalen DeLoach would scoop up a fumble and return it 56 yards to tie the game at 24 and force overtime, where the Seminoles would complete the comeback to win the game. Huge. Seminoles remain undefeated, 4-0. Clemson drops to 2-2. Big games to look forward to next week. Follow that hype train, Colorado. They have another difficult game ahead of them as they host USC. And USC has been dominant this season. They just drubbed Arizona State 42-28 this past weekend. Caleb Williams looks poised to win his second Heisman. Probably be a number one pick in the draft if he chooses to be. A few other games that could be dandies: Utah, Oregon State, LSU, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Notre Dame versus Duke. In those games, I have USC and Utah, and I have South Carolina and Duke taking the upsets. So we'll see what happens there. WNBA playoffs are wild and rolling. The Aces had already advanced by the time last episode had went. There were 2-0 win over the Sky. Liberty needed overtime to knock off the Mystics. Natasha Cloud balled out in that game, going 33, 9, and 6 assists and rebounds, and a loss to the Liberty. And that sets up a good dandy with the Sun, who had to go to a third deciding game to knock off the Minnesota Lynx. And the Dallas Wings dismantled the Dream in 2, sweeping them. So there we go. We had the semifinals start Sunday, and the Aces, defending champs, look good and jumped out to an early 1-0 lead over the Wings that never really looked close. Connecticut Sun, after their 3-game series, they only won of the first round, went into New York and they beat the Liberty 1-0 to take the series. What a bad time to have a bad game for the Liberty, but all kudos to Connecticut. Duana Bonner was balling out. They looked the real deal. Games 2 to 4 throughout the week will be going on, and we'll see what happens by the time next episode. I think the Aces are going to sweep the Wings. Liberty, they're in some trouble with the Sun, though. We'll see what happens there. Some fun ball going on. Got to jump out to boxing. Huge bout went down Saturday. Massive Chinese boxer Big Bang Zhang and Joe Joyce in their rematch. And Big Bang looked like how he did in the first. He wasn't troubled at all. Joyce would throw some punches, but they didn't come close to having the impact of Zhang's punches. The third round, Zhang would continue to pummel Joyce. Then with Southpaw's weaker hand, he hit him with a right. It is a devastating right. And Joyce just went face first on the mat. And the ref was like, shit, we done, son. Took him down again, regains his WBO interim championship. He's 40 years old. I wish he was professional earlier, because Big Bang Zhang is the real deal. Check out his highlights. He can take punches, but each punch is like a car crash. The violence of it is it's phenomenal to watch. And the Japanese Grand Prix went down over the weekend. Surprise, surprise. Max Verstappen held on to a winner race by 19 seconds, his 13th of the season. By doing so, Red Bull won the Constructors' Championship. I don't know why I had trouble with that word. But despite Sergio Perez having to retire the car in the 15th lap, they still won. That's just how dominant Max has been all year. Mercedes were dueling with each other a lot of times this race. George Russell was asking, are we racing each other or everybody else? And it's a weird looking podium than most, because obviously Max, but then you had 2 McLarens up there. You had Lando and Oscar Piastri getting his first ever podium. He raced phenomenal. You got to give it to him. So yeah, that's it for Constructors Champ. It's already Red Bull. Max should be clinching the title. We already know he's going to win it. It's just a matter of when is it official. Next race takes place October 7th in the Middle East for the Qatar GP. So we'll see what happens there. Is it Qatar or Qatar? We'll see how they pronounce it. It depends on really what country you're in and how they pronounce it. But yeah, if you know how, give me a shout out. I always mess that word up. I think it's Qatar. But we'll see. And wild week of sports. Like I said, this is crazy shit we just witnessed. It's like Christmas and fall, which had me thinking of like, what short do I use for this episode? Like Christmas and fall, Christmas, fall at Christmas, bingo. So for this short, I'm going back to a Christmas holiday, like over a decade ago. This was, Christmas time, people having beverages and enjoying themselves, and then came time to go to bed. But I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling kind of parched. I'm like, oh man, a little thirsty. So I kind of hopped out of the bed, and the bed that was being loaned out to us was my niece's bed. So it was kind of a raised bed. So it was a little hop out. I wasn't gonna climb out or anything. Just a nice little hop. And I was heading towards the bathroom to get some water, and I was feeling kind of nauseous. I was like, oh man. So I sat down on the top of the stairs and kind of held my eyes. I'm like, I don't feel too well. And then when I opened my eyes, I was at the bottom of the stairs getting my face tapped to wake up. I'm like, what the fuck? And like, I get kind of bearings a bit and I get led to the couch. I guess as I was holding my eyes, I must have fainted or passed out and just leaned forward, the opposite of what Fat Joe wanted us to do. And I just fell down the stairs. I had a shaved head at the time. I had a rug burn on there from like breakdancing on the way down or something. And like people heard this, like I'm not a small dude, and falling down the stairs in the middle of the night. I guess like my dad was laying in bed and thinking like, oh, that drunk Rennie fell down the stairs, which is fair. I mean, that is a fair thing to think. But yeah, after was discovered laying at the bottom of the stairs, they're like, oh shit, maybe this isn't good. So like I said, they got me to the couch and I was shaking. I had some extreme shakes. I don't know what. It was weird. I don't know if it's from the head injury, if I was fucking cold. But yeah, it was like extreme shivering. And then they're like, my dad's like, yo, told my nephew, my wild ass nephew, to get some water. And he came back with just a random drink off the counter. I had a sip of it and like spit it out like the classic Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke scene. Like, it's fucking vodka, man. Like, yeah, it did not help when I was feeling in the condition I did. So it was decided, hey, let's go to the hospital. So there I am, Christmas morning in the Lloydminster Hospital. Put me in a neck brace. I said I had a concussion. I had a strained neck, so no drinking. I had to take some meds. So there we go, Christmas. All neck braced up, can't drink. What a Merry Christmas moment. And to add more shit to the fire, like there was a flu going on through the house. So like my mom was super sick that day. She like didn't even come out of the room. A few other people were sick. And like I said, I was just like this, turning, barely able to see people because I couldn't turn my neck. And then the next day came. It's like, all right, time to drive back to Saskatoon. And the person I was with, she had picked up the flu, and I was like, for fuck's sake! So the drive back home. She's like, I gotta throw up, and I'm like, I can't shoulder check, and I had to like pull over, and it was a whole fucking thing. Managed to get over without any throw up in the car or without crashing into the ditch or any other cars. Not the most fun drive, but it worked out. I still get pain here and there from that, but I'm alive. You know, that's the main thing. If you're gonna pass out, don't sit at the top of the stairs. I cannot emphasize that enough. But yeah, Merry Christmas, yo. Christmas and fall, fall at Christmas. Shit, full circle. But that's episode 29, yo. It's in the books. Thanks for coming out, enjoying sports and shorts of sorts. Episode 30 next week. Let's do it. Thanks for coming out again, guys. Ren City out.